Hey friends, welcome to episode 191 of the Fierce Calling podcast. I'm Doris Swift, your host, and we are talking with guests who are taking action where their passion, compassion, and conviction intersect, which is their fierce calling. And we're talking about digging deeper into the Bible. Today's guest you are going to love. Her name is Amy Center. And she is an artist, and she has created all of these wonderful Bible literacy tools for people to dig deeper into the Word and to learn how to better study their Bible in a very fun and effective way. And she's going to share her testimony about a really difficult season in her life when she was diagnosed with Lyme disease. But before she was diagnosed, she was going through so much suffering and they didn't know what it was. And, I don't know if any of you have ever been there where you have symptoms and maybe you're made to feel like it's all in your head or, something's wrong with you. But I think her story is going to encourage, inspire, and challenge a lot of people. And I'll introduce you formally when we start the show and give you a little bit more background about Amy. But I know you're going to love this episode, so stay tuned, friends. What is threatening to steal your joy? What is it that feels so heavy right now that you could barely stand? God has a plan, and His plan is to surrender it. Surrender it to Him. It might be a prodigal. It might be a relationship, a marriage, something with your job. So many things. We have so many amazing blessings, but there are so many things in our life that threaten to steal our joy. I'm Doris Swift, author of the award-winning 6-week Bible study, Surrender the Joy Stealers, Rediscover the Jesus Joy in You. And it helps women rediscover the overflowing, ever-present Jesus joy within that fills, empowers, and ripens the fruit that God produces in our lives. Using personal and biblical stories, I share how you can identify your joy stealers, surrender them to God, reawaken the joy within, and share the joy with others. You can do it on your own or with a group. Check it out, friends. Surrender the Joy Stealers. Rediscover the Jesus Joy in You. It's available on all the online retailers. It's time to take your joy back. Welcome back to the show. Today, I'm excited to introduce to you my friend Amy Center. She is a Christian lifestyle blogger, artist, and educator who is focused on bringing passion and joy back to your personal Bible study in a way that is visual and simple to understand. I think this is going to be amazing and an awesome conversation. She outlined all 66 books of the Bible into a collection of digital printables, say that fast 10 times, which have been sold in 45 countries. And yeah, I've just been checking out some of her things that she offers, and it's been amazing. And you're going to love what she has to share. She lives in Texas with her college sweetheart and their 2 children. So thank you for being on the show. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to do this.
Yeah, I love your ministry and your heart for wanting people to have like a deeper knowledge of the Bible, or find ways
Yes.
that they can study it, because sometimes it can be overwhelming and a little intimidating and people don't understand where to start, or and I'm not saying that Bible literacy means that people are illiterate. It just means that Bible literacy is to help people study well and to share your gift of
Yes.
teaching, because you have a background in teaching. So I would love if you would share a little bit about your story and how you got into all of this and how you're taking action where your passion, compassion, and conviction intersect.
I was just going to give you a little background about me. I was born and raised in Virginia, a suburb outside of DC, which is very, you know, in the city. And then I moved to go to college in Texas at Abilene Christian University, where I met my college sweetheart. And he's from a very, very small town in Texas. So I said, if we live in the city, I'll stay in Texas. So we're here in Texas. We've been there ever since. I love it. And it's just really, really different than how I grew up, but it's just been a really great experience for our kids. We've been married 19 years now. Yeah. And so I got a degree in education to teach elementary. I taught second grade for 4 years, and I have a background in art as well. And then when I had my kids, I stayed home with them. And what I did when I taught was I handled most of the dyslexic students as well as the kids with learning disabilities and behavior disabilities. And so I already had like a visual approach to my own way of studying through, college and high school. But I really was able to hone my skill and everything I thought of. How do I explain this in a more simple way? How do I simplify this even more because of those kids that had those learning disabilities? And so I just really honed into those visual skills and simplifying things. And ended up using this method with my own kids and teaching them, how to work on behaviors and learning responsibilities and those kinds of things. And now I use that to teach people how to study the Bible using those techniques of making it fun and simple and visual and taking the intimidation out of it and making it relatable, so that my goal is to help people bring passion back into their Bible study rather than making it like, oh, it's your tradition, or it's a guilt trip, or it just needs to
Mhm.
be a habit that I start. I want people to be passionate about it. And so I use those simple techniques that I started with my second graders
Nice.
and it's been resonating. I really created them for adults, and of course it's resonating with kids too, because that's kind of the basis of what happened. But I've got
Mhm.
anywhere from people in retirement homes to people teaching preschoolers are using these visuals, the same exact stuff, just because it's so simplistic to understand. And so I've really, really, I don't have plans to go back to teach because I'm loving what I'm doing right now.
Well, you are teaching, so that is
Yes.
amazing. And yeah, I love the way you make it fun. You have the color coding and all the different ways that you make the printables because you have that background in art. So it's amazing how, God has just equipped you and provided these skills and gifts that He's gifted and given to you to use for His glory and to help others. And it
Absolutely.
just is amazing combination to have art and the teaching and then create these printables to help others to learn, and how you have a very diverse, or a wide range of age groups that use these tools,
Yes.
these resources. So great. And so tell us about, because you have also a YouTube channel, right? And then you
Yes.
go through different things with people who watch, how you actually don't just say do this, you actually show them how, right? So how did that
Yes.
start and what does that look like?
Well, I wanted to kind of, I've got an idea of how I do it, but other people are, you know, they're more like, oh, I'll just print your notes and
Uh-huh.
use them alongside what I'm studying, which I love, but I want to take it further and teach people how to do this on their own as well. So what my videos have become are my Facebook group. I have the girls in there suggest a book and chapter. What are you studying? What do you want me to help you outline? And so every Friday, for the most part, I take one of those suggestions and we live time. I read the passage and then I
Mhm.
show you this is how I would take notes on it. And I have people take notes with me, and then I re upload those to YouTube so you can watch the replays over there. And it's just been like, um, opened up a whole new conversation and community that I'm really, really enjoying. So it's not so much when is your next set of notes coming out. It's how this has transformed my Bible study, and now I'm teaching this method to my Sunday school class, or I'm talking to my friends who just became Christians or whatever. So it's just really it's one of those things where I'm still honing my technique to simplify how to teach it even now. So
Mhm.
it's something that I'm leaning into. There's going to be a lot of exciting things coming with that. The Bible journaling lessons that I'm doing, because I think this is so practical for people to apply. And I don't want people to feel, a lot of times we'll listen to a sermon or listen to a Bible study and be like, they know so much. And if they're like, we all know when Paul did this or Peter, and if you're the one sitting there like, I don't know that. it really is disheartening. So I'm trying to let people know that you don't have to have a PhD in theology or go to seminary or things to understand your Bible. Yes, that's a whole nother level, but God created these words for the everyday person. And so I'm trying to help people take that feeling of empowerment and passion and just get to know who God is through that.
Yeah. Wow, I love that so much. And it really makes an impact. And I think the book you're going to write next is going to be God's Word for Everyday People. I think that's because I love how you just said that. And you're right. You know,
Yes.
you don't need a PhD. You don't need a degree in theology or something, you know, a seminary degree to be able to read and hone in on things in the Bible, see different themes and patterns and,
Yes.
you know, different things like that, that it just takes someone a step ahead maybe to help someone who is coming forward. But I also like how you brought out the fact that sometimes we might assume that people know things. Like some of us, you know, being raised in the church, or some of us who've taught Sunday school, we're familiar with a lot of even the most well-known Bible stories. There are people who are just now coming to Christ who maybe weren't raised in the church and are not familiar with some of these things. So it's great that
Yeah.
you teach it. And I watched one of your videos. It was great. And you did it on Song of Songs, also known as Song of Solomon. That's not an easy one to do, but I love how you talked about it. And you talked about the fact, you know, you were talking about, you know, how we're the bride and, you know, Christ is the bridegroom, and how it's kind of talking about God's design for sex and how the enemy really in the world just wants to twist something beautiful, a beautiful gift he gave to us. And I thought that was really great how you explained all of that and went through that process. So, but yeah, so tell us more about like when you actually start into developing your teaching. Do you outline what you're going to do, or do you just dive right in, or how does that process work?
Because I'm constantly, I am, I don't know that I'm technically ADHD, but I feel like it sometimes.
Mm.
I'm just very creative, constantly coming up with a new idea. And so I feel like I've been taking that approach right now to my Bible journaling videos, is just kind of seeing what I'm feeling like in the moment. And sometimes I will take the notes beforehand and I do tons of study, and then I do my video and I say, I've taken the notes. Let me walk you through what we did. And then other times I will take, just come on and tell me your suggestions and let's see if we can hash it out here. Or other times I'll be like, this is kind of my steps that I'm going to do, and I'll just follow those steps. So I like to experiment with a lot of them.
Yeah.
And so what I've decided that I'm going to do in the future is make my method, teach my method like as an acronym and help people memorize it and help people walk through it so it's even more clear. And that's the guide that I'm going to be using. But because this Bible journaling lessons have been fairly new this year
Mm.
has been a lot of like, do I want to totally do it beforehand? Do I want to do it while I'm doing it? Do I want to, just pray before we start and see what happens? And
Yes.
so I think through that, I've kind of got a combination of all of them. But going forward, I want to make it very clear, like, here's a method you can memorize and apply to anything, and
Mhm.
let's walk through it. And that might be, give me your suggestion right now, let's do it. Or it might be, I prepared this ahead and here's how you can do it on your own. But yeah, there's a lot of just creativity that goes into it. That's another thing I
Mm.
teach, is
Yeah.
just talking about everybody's learning style is different. Everyone's approach to this is different. Even like getting people past the barriers of writing in your Bible is okay, as opposed to
Hmm.
putting the journal next to it. Like I'm trying to hone to all of these people's different learning styles and leaning into your gifts and talents. And
Yeah.
so I love to try out different things, if that answers your question.
Yes, it really does. And I also love that you do it in a way because, as you said, different people learn different ways, differently.
Yes.
there's sensory, all different types of learning. And also the fact that you help, because some deal with dyslexia, and some people may not understand how difficult it is for someone that is dealing with that to try to study something or to even journal or write. So, I love that you have that background, because you know where that person is coming from and how you can best teach. And I think that's important. It's kind of like the five love languages, it's kind of
Yes.
similar when you get to
Yeah.
know how people learn. You can teach them in the way that they can learn, and
Yes.
that's how they can grasp it, versus only, using one particular method or something, that may not be
Mhm.
good for everyone, that may not be the best for everyone. So, yeah, so I love that. And you have had some difficulties in your own life with this. I mean, this is a very fierce calling that you have, and there was a time when you were really struggling with your health, right? And then how did that
Yes.
look? What was that situation that you had gone through, that difficult season?
Well, that's kind of when my faith journey, I grew up in the church, but
Hmm.
my faith journey from, my childhood to now is completely different. And that's kind of what I'm calling challenging people to do, is look at how have you grown, or how are you planning on growing, or have you even thought about growing? Like, is your faith a one and done, or is it something you want to pursue and deepen? And I hadn't really thought in that way until I went through this hardship. My faith was never really questioned or gone, but I wasn't, it was just more like my family does raise me like this. My husband's family raised him like this. And so we're just going to live our lives like this. And we weren't very disciplined about what we did because it was more habitual or traditional. When we had kids, we kind of had to claim it as our own. Is this something that's important to us?
Hmm.
Do we want to pass this on to our kids? And so we started going to church more and started modeling better behaviors for our kids and things like that. And I think that's true with a lot of people, is your kids kind of call out your flaws and you start to work on yourself because you want to be a better example for them.
Yeah.
Um, but what I felt was that, like, just passion for it was still missing. I was never like, oh, I can't wait to study the next thing in my Bible, or Sunday morning. Like, I never was like, oh yes, it's Sunday morning. And that's something that it sounds silly, but I really do love going to church and I love reading my Bible. And that was not really something I could say before. It was
Hmm.
more of a, I need to do this. I should be doing more. I'm not doing enough, type thing. But when I had my daughter in 2014, I had a 3-year-old son and I had my daughter, and I was stay-at-home mom and everything was, you know, hunky dory. And I started having I got this unexplained pain. And it was like, after I had her, it was like, isn't my back pain supposed to go away? And all these little aches and things, and just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And so I kept seeing all these specialists and doctors, and it was years before I figured out what's going on. And I was on a ridiculous amount of medications, and some of them were causing even more symptoms. I ended up being in a wheelchair. I had to get a nanny to take care of my kids. I was having seizures and tremors and like excruciating pain that no medication would touch. And so when I couldn't get help from family or doctors or friends, even though they're right there going, what do you want? We want to help. What do we do? It got to the point where it was like, nobody knows what to do. Nobody can help me with anything. It was like all I had left was God to lean on. And so I was in such a dark place that instead of being like, I will turn to the Lord and trust him, it was, I am not happy with God right now. And
Hmm.
so I have been begging and praying and for this to end and get some answers, and I'm not. And then when we did get answers, I found out I had late stage Lyme disease. The treatment was really complicated and there weren't very good answers. And they were like, oh, and the treatment's going to make you worse. And so it was like, and we don't know if you'll ever get rid of this. So it was just like any news or answers just felt worse. And so I
Mm.
just felt more and more hopeless. And
Mm.
so I really started questioning my faith. And I realized, well, what do I believe about God? My entire life, I believed he's real and he's good. And so I had to decide, does this mean he's not real if he's still good and he's not being good right now? Or do I have to believe that he's real and he's not good? Or, it was just, what do I believe? And honestly, it was easier for me to believe God just doesn't exist than
Mm.
God is allowing this to happen because he doesn't care. Because it didn't align with the God I grew up on. I was like, God
Mm.
cares. He loves me. This doesn't make sense. So
Yeah.
maybe he doesn't exist. And of course, that didn't set in my soul very long. That didn't line up either. Um, and so I had to decide if I believe that God is real and if I believe that God is good, that maybe I didn't understand who God really was,
Mm.
because maybe there was something bigger than God is just here to make me happy and healthy,
Yeah.
and that's really, really hard when you start to realize God isn't here to keep us safe. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times that's what, our prayers are: keep me safe, keep me healthy, keep my kids safe. And it's not that God doesn't care or he doesn't love us. But what I learned in that time was not necessarily that he was doing this to me, but he was allowing it
Mm-hmm.
and not stopping it is a good shift too when you're going through hardship. It's to not necessarily put the blame on him, but to understand he's allowing this. And if he's allowing it and he's good, what is the purpose in it? And so I
Mm-hmm.
changed my focus on um, prioritizing my spiritual healing over my physical, because I realized there's a lot of bitterness and anger and confusion and depression towards God that I'm not dealing with, because I'm like, well, just what pill will fix this, or what doctor will know what this is, or what tool will do this, or, or should I just sleep until this is over? And it just went on for years. And I realized, am I just going to wish my life away until I get better, or am I going to start living? And so when I started learning these truths about God and digging into who God really was, I started seeing this is not a punishment or a death sentence or whatever. And that spiritual healing allowed me to let go of that control. Some I don't like the term when people say God will never give you more than you can handle,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because I feel like he will give you more than you can handle so that you will lean on him. Because if we can handle everything, we don't need him. Um, and that was one of those things where I was like, uh, I I focused on that shift of God wanted me to heal spiritually first before he would work that physical healing. And I'm not saying that if you pray hard enough, God will heal you. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying that's how God works. It's not a black and white situation. But in my case, with me prioritizing my spiritual healing, every other aspect of my life was a domino effect of healing. My mental health, I started learning about self-care and gratitude and stress reduction and getting back into drawing and writing just for myself. My emotional, I started getting counseling. I started dealing with my past and dealing with my anxiety and depression. And my physical started healing as my spiritual started healing. I got off medications. I stopped needing a nanny. I had less flare-ups. Um, and so in that spirit, what that looked like was I was letting go control, and I was beginning to trust God. I was opening my Bible again. I was
Mm-hmm.
prioritizing going to church. I was asking people for help. I was worshiping and praying outside of church. I was doing it on my own. And these are not things that I was doing before. Um, and then I began what happened to transition this hardship and all these lessons I was learning as a person. Uh, I began taking my notes in my Bible, just like I had taught my second graders, and just like I had taught myself in high school and college and classes, and taught my kids on how to learn these skills, and like doing little illustrations. These are your steps to get ready for school or whatever. But I started taking notes in my Bible on who God was and what he was saying and how it applied to me. And I had had a blog that I was writing about kind of my spiritual and Lyme journey.
Mhm.
And so I started adding a few notes. This is what I'm working on today. And people started going, "What is this? Where'd you get this?" And I started explaining, "Oh, I made this. It was just like in my notebook." And so people started asking, "Can I buy this? Can I get this? Can I print this? Make more?" And it was
Mhm.
just kind of one of those things where I went into this not going, "God, what is my calling?" Or, "God, how can I
Mhm.
make money?" Or, "God, how can I start a business?" It was one baby step at a time. And even when people were like, "Can I get another paper?" I wasn't even thinking, "Charge money for this or turn this
Mhm.
into a business." It was, "Yeah, send me your email, like, cool, you liked my notes." It was just about, like, us opening that conversation for, me encouraging other people and their hardships and things like that. And so throughout this whole journey, it was like I saw my teaching, my art, my organization,
Mhm.
I took a writing course when the kids were little just for fun, to see if I wanted to be a children's writer. It was like I had an Etsy shop where I sewed some things. I was trying all these little like hobbies like a lot of stay-at-home moms do. And just to see how all like every single one of those skills and pieces, learning
Mhm.
how to deal with conflict as a teacher and with parents and being a leader and all those things, volunteering at church, it's like everything came together in a way I could never have imagined it. And now I make a living teaching people the gospel in a way that is doodles and joy and humor and art and tears and realness.
Mhm.
And it's just so, it's been my fierce calling has been more than I could ever dream of because I have passion for
Mhm.
doing this on my own, for teaching it to other people. And I want people to understand that this is what God calls us to be in relationship with Him, is that joy no matter our circumstances. Um, and that because a lot of us are holding our breath for like, when is this season going to be over? And I want you to know that this is more than note taking. This is transformation. The more you understand the Bible, the more you're literate in the Bible, meaning I can explain what I'm reading. I can teach it to other people, and is even if it's just my child. The more you're understanding who God is, and you have that joy and peace, um, that joy in trials, like what is that? You don't understand that until you go through these things. So I am just so fortunate and blessed to be able to come out of such a terrible season with
Mhm.
such a beautiful gift that I am in no rush to end. I want to do this
Yes.
forever.
That's so beautiful. And this is why we need to tell our stories. We need to share our testimonies like this because when you were talking about how you were going through this dark season and you were having these physical issues, but then once your perspective changed and you started working then on the spiritual side, it physically made a difference too. I mean, I know that different ways that we, like the gratitude and all of that, can actually physically change the pathways in our brains and, those things like that. So it's all limited in our eyes, but unlimited in God's amazing power in us. And how you looked at it and you said, okay, either this is true or this is true, or maybe I don't really know God like I thought I did. And you explored more into his character and what does this actually mean. So I think that is so, so powerful. And how you started, like you said, you kind of like you weren't praying about God, what is my calling? He just like guided you right into it. It's almost like you fell right into it, naturally in the path that he was leading you on. When we say we make our plans and he directs our steps, that's what the word says. So
Yes.
he directed your steps in that. Wow, that is really powerful. What a testimony. And the thing about Lyme disease, people can just get that from a tick or something, right? I mean, it really wasn't even
Yes.
connected to the birth of your daughter.
No, that's kind of a controversial disease, which I didn't
Mm.
realize.
Mhm.
Doctors very much are like, divided on how they feel about it. So that was
Yeah.
part of my frustration too, was
Yeah.
I had a lot of doctors questioning my sanity as well. And that
Yeah.
was really, really scary because I didn't, I felt out of control. Um,
Mhm.
and so also the other thing was, it was just about the taking it one step at a time of trusting
Mhm.
God.
Mhm.
And that was across the board with my health and all those things, my calling, my health, my, where's this business going, all that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Everything had to do with putting my trust in God and
Mhm.
doing, not having that plan and just
Yeah.
saying, well, today I'm going to take that step. And even the physical stuff, I feel like was affected because my mindset shift was totally different in how I
Mhm.
approached, how am I going to heal? It wasn't, I'm so scared, let's try this. I'm so scared, let's try this. You're an idiot.
Yeah.
That didn't work. Like I wasn't just angry at everybody all the time.
Yeah.
Doctors, family, my sweet husband. I mean, you want help and you can't get it. And so I
Mhm.
was just acting out all the time, just in
Mhm.
anger and fear. And when I decided to trust God one step at a time, I got to put all that aside. And so I could finally hear what people were saying. I could actually make rational decisions instead of just, whatever emotion, just ride that wave. And so I feel like a lot of that physical healing came from that mindset
Mhm.
shift of, I can't even, give me wisdom, Lord. Like that wasn't happening until
Mhm.
I let go and let him do his thing. I think there's so much to be said about the way our minds work, that
Yeah.
we're kind of in a world where we think everything's been discovered almost. You kind of get in that mindset.
Mhm.
And to just get those little insights into, practicing gratitude or how to, like, stress reduction. Doctors were like, reduce your stress. I'm like, is how? Not have
Mhm.
children that need me all the time. Like, what does that mean? Like,
Yeah.
just to learn how to know, that means you take care of yourself, you eat healthy, you rest when you need to, you do things you love, you get hobbies, you go date your husband, all those kinds of things. It was like it
Mhm.
hadn't even occurred to me, um, that you can, you know, take back your stress. You can claim, you can have
Yes.
some control over it. And I feel like we're in such a chaotic world that it's just like we're at the mercy of, here's another thing that's happening to me. And so I had such a
Mhm.
mindset shift of, I guess, being that victim and
Yeah.
being, more empowered of, no, I've got this. It'll be okay no matter what. That, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, even if
Yeah.
he doesn't
Yes,
rescue
even
us.
if.
It was that mindset,
Mhm.
that just brought so much peace and freedom back to it, is that trusting in one step at a time. And
Yeah.
yeah.
So good. So good. Surrender and trust, and it makes such a difference. And I love that you do encourage people to, it's okay to write in your Bible, and so that the things that are coming out of all of this. I just wanted to mention that too, because you were talking about leaving a legacy. And when you think about it too, how many times, like when a grandma passes away or something, and her Bible is left, her notes
Oh
in the
my
Bible
goodness.
are so
Yes.
precious, and so let's think of
Yes.
it that way. And I know some people have mixed feelings about writing the Bible, but I think that's an encouragement. But what were you, like, you were talking about surrender and trust as so key, and then this fell into your calling and became a business, things that you hadn't even, it was beyond what you could have asked or imagined. It was like that,
Yes.
he does exceedingly abundantly above what we could ask or think. I think that's what in Ephesians, right? And so, yeah, so this is just so powerful. And you sharing your testimony here, but also the encouragement that you continue to do. It's like, it's not just, this is my story and you just tell your story. It's like, it's continuing in what you're teaching others that becomes part of their story. So I think that is fantastic. And I thank you so much. This has been amazing. And I would love if you could share, how the listener can connect with you. How can they find these principles and things that you talked about?
Yeah, I want people to get real about their spiritual health.
Mhm.
and write down where you are and where you want to be. And I think a lot of people, um, setting these goals and working on your self-care sounds great, but you don't really know what to do next. And so
Mhm.
that's where I've been stepping in, and I want to
Mhm.
guide you, because in addition to like showing you my notes and how to take notes in the Bible, in my Bible, I talk about like Jesus practiced self-care. Let's talk about what that looked like in his life.
Yeah.
I talk about spiritual goal settings. What are spiritual disciplines? We always set these New Year's goals. And so I have so much that I want to help you in connecting that biblical literacy to your own personal spiritual growth.
Mhm.
And so I'd love to help you if this sounds like something you're interested in. And the easiest way to connect with me is just visit my site and subscribe, and that will connect you to my social channels, my freebies, my lessons. You have shop discounts, as well as once you're on my email list, you can email me directly. So that is just my name, Amy Center with a Senter,
Mhm.
amycenter.com. And then you can go to the subscribe button, /subscribe, or just, it's pretty much on every page to subscribe. But that's the easiest way to connect with me. And I'd love to hear from you. Even just say email just really gets me excited to meet people and not just be, a person behind a screen, but a real person. And so, any way I can
Yeah.
help you and encourage you, I'd love to do that.
That's that's awesome. And the fact that you love building community. And that's exactly
Yes.
what, we're inviting whoever's listening right now, you're being invited into community, and we were made for community, community with
Yes.
God, and then community with others. So I think this is wonderful, and I don't know who would not want to check that out. Who's listening? I'll have the links in the show notes so people can connect with you. And I just, yeah, this has been so great, and I'm so glad we talked about the part of the health challenge and how the physical and the spiritual all connect. God created us. He knitted us together in our mother's wombs. I mean, he knows in and out everything about our bodies. And so just trusting him and surrendering to him, and he will take care of the rest. And like you said, it doesn't always mean things will be perfect. It doesn't always mean that we won't have any trauma in our lives, but when, as you had said and shared, when you look at the bigger picture story of what is the purpose of this, instead of saying, why me? What is the purpose that this is happening, and trusting God in it? So thank you so much, Amy. This has been
Thank you,
amazing. And I hope to
Doris.
have you back on sometime.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, friend. Well, God bless you and your family and what you're doing in this ministry to help people learn to study the Bible and walk deeper in God's word, because it is so precious, and it is definitely a fierce calling. And we'll be talking soon. Okay, friend. Take care, and I love you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you for listening today. Wasn't that an amazing conversation with Amy? And it was very encouraging, and I hope that it really inspired and challenged you to check out her site and learn ways that you can dig deeper into the Bible and study the Word, and to get a newfound love for the Word. Sometimes we really have to pray if we find it hard to dig into our Bible. Just pray, God, give me that hunger to seek you out and seek your word. And I love how she talks so much about trusting God, because that is such a key thing for us. And when we go through difficult seasons, that could be hard, but we know He's a God who loves us. He's a God who sees us, and we can trust him and surrender all the things to him that really, really bring us down. So turn to him, friends. If you are struggling right now, turn to him, and he hears you. He'll answer you. So, yeah, and this has been so amazing. And friend, I also want to remind you, if you're looking for a speaker for your next women's event, I'm currently booking for 2025. So check it out. Book me on womenspeakers.com so we can have a conversation about that. And I hope you join me next time when I talk with another woman who's taking action where her passion, compassion, and conviction intersect. Until then, friend, have a blessed week, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to this episode that is part of the Spark Media Network that can now be heard on the Edify app.